Hello, this is Patricia from patriciafenty.com, and today I have a new pattern for you. I'm going to show you how to crochet this granny square pattern, and this is part of a series that I'm doing, and I'll put links to these below. This is an afghan project that I'm making with all these different patterns, and today I'm going to show you how to do this wild rose granny square. So let's get started. Now for round one, I'm starting with the Lion brand Touch of Alpaca. This is a number 4 medium weight yarn. It's a acrylic alpaca blend. There's just 10% alpaca. And this is number 104 Rose Blush. And then I'm using a 4mm G6 crochet hook, and you'll need a darning needle and some scissors. So we're going to start with a slip knot. And if you're new to crochet, you can check out my Beginner Crochet Series, and I'll link to that below as well. So put your loop on your hook and chain 4. And then make a ring and join with a slip stitch going into that top loop of your beginning chain with a slip stitch. Then you'll chain 1 and make this kind of a loose chain. I always like to make those beginning chains quite loose. And now you'll do 7 single crochets into the ring. So just let your hook kind of find the center of the ring and grab your yarn from behind and do a single crochet. And then we'll repeat that 6 more times for a total of 7 single crochets into the ring. And that's 4, and I'm crocheting in my tail here. You can do that if you like. I like to crochet in the tail whenever possible. And that's 6 and 7. Now we're going to be finishing every round in the same way. You're not going to join with your crochet hook to finish this round. We're going to do an invisible stitch. So you're just going to snip your yarn, and what we're doing is we're crocheting into the back loop of every stitch in every round, and so you don't want to work into any knots. So I'm going to show you how to do a knotless join. If you followed any of my patterns before, you'll see I use this finishing technique a lot. So bring your yarn through and put your needle onto the yarn, and then you have your beginning chain 1. That's your first V stitch there. A little bit hard to see. And you're actually going to go into the second stitch and lay your mock stitch on top of your first chain, and that will keep your stitch count correct. So going into the second stitch under the 2 loops, the V of that second stitch, and sort of work it over. And essentially you're laying this stitch on top of your chain 1 stitch. So you'll have kind of like a double row there, and sort of work it around. And you have to do it this way so your stitch count stays correct. And then this is the stitch that your yarn is coming out of, and you're going to go back into the V of that stitch from the top and bring your needle into the back of your work. And then you'll just sort of fiddle with this a bit and imitate a crochet stitch. And it's a little fussy at first, but you can see there you have no knots in that, and it's a really nice finish. So then you're just going to flip it over and finish darning in your tail ends. And this pattern is great because you'll darn in your tail ends as you go. So go ahead and do that. There you go. So you should have 8 stitches all the way around. And for row 2, I'm using the Red Heart Amore yarn. And this is actually 100% polyester. It's a number 4 medium weight, and the color is Chai. And I am mixing up the yarn blends for this project. I have some alpaca, and I have some wool, and some synthetic blends, and I am mixing it all up, but I do plan to wash this all in cold water. So you start with a slip knot, In any one of your stitches here, you're going to join on into the top loop here. Just go under the top loop only, and you're joining on with a single crochet. So grab your yarn from behind, flip your tail over, you have 2 loops on your hook, and do a single crochet. And then you'll do 2 single crochets into the next stitch, going into just into the top loop there. Oh, I got stuck with the plies. So there's 1 and 2. And then 1 single crochet in the next stitch, just into the top loop, and 2 single crochets into the next stitch. And you'll just repeat that all the way around. And then coming into the last stitch here, you'll be finishing off with 2 single crochets into that 8th stitch, and now you have a total of 12 stitches for this round. And we're going to finish this round in the same way. So you'll cut your yarn, pull it through, put your needle on your thread, and always skipping that first stitch and going into the second one, and coming in from the back, picking up the 2 loops, and you're laying your mock stitch, your invisible stitch, on top of that first stitch. Oops. And you'll get used to this. And so you sort of pull that together, and it is a little bit fussy at first. And then you bring your needle down into that middle of that stitch that your yarn is coming out of, and bringing the needle in through the back, and just fuss with it a little bit. And you'll see here, that's your first stitch that you're kind of laying over top of. And then you'll just darn in your tail ends. Now for row 3, I'm using the Lion Brand Touch of Alpaca again, and the color is 113 red. And row 3 is just a repeat of row 2. So you'll create a slip knot and put that on your hook, and going into any stitch and just into the top loop only, you'll join on with a single crochet. Flip your tail over and you'll do a single crochet. And then you'll do 2 single crochets in the next stitch and 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then 2 single crochets into the next stitch. And this is where your joining stitch was in the back here, and this is the mock stitch here at the front, and you're going into that mock stitch there and doing the 2 single crochets, and you'll just repeat that all the way around, and we'll see on the other side. Now coming to the end of this round, you'll always know if your stitch count is correct, because I've just finished my 1 single crochet, and then the last stitch of this round will have 2 single crochets. And now you will have 18 stitches for this round. And then you'll just snip your yarn, pull it through, and do your invisible stitch just as before. Skipping that first stitch and going into the back of the second stitch, going under both loops. Lay your mock stitch on top of that first stitch, and then bring your needle in through the back of that stitch that your yarn's coming out of, and then just darn in your tail ends. And it's going to be curling up a bit, but that'll straighten out later on. Now round 4, I'm using the Lion Brand Touch of Alpaca, and the color is 123 Taupe. And this row is a repeat of row 3. So you just create your slip knot, and you'll be joining on with a single crochet, and just into any loop, going into the top loop, flip your tail over, and you'll do 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around, alternating 1 single crochet in one stitch and 2 single crochet in the next stitch, and finish off as usual. And you can see here I've darned in all the tail ends, and that's the end of row 4, and you should have 27 stitches all the way around. And for row 5, I'm using the Lion Brand Touch of Alpaca, and this color is 132 Olive. Again, joining on in the same way, and this is almost the same as round 4, but it is slightly different. So join on with a slip knot, and going into any stitch, just into the top loop only, you'll join on with a single crochet. Flip, so you're always working into the top loop. So do a single crochet, and then do 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And that will be the pattern for this row. So a single crochet in the next stitch, and another single crochet in the next stitch, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So repeat that all the way around. So coming to the end of this round, and again, your pattern repeat should always end with your 2 single crochets. So I've got 1 more stitch, and I'll be doing 2 single crochets into that last stitch. And then there'll be a total of 36 stitches for this round. And it's important to keep the stitch count on track because of how we're going to do our final rounds. So go ahead and finish that round as usual. Now for round 6, I'm using the Lion Brand Touch of Alpaca in the 158 Goldenrod. And round 6 is just a repeat of round 5. So joining on in the same way, got your slip knot, and joining in with a single crochet into any stitch into the back loop, and do your single crochet, and then a single crochet in the next stitch, and 2 single crochets in the next stitch. And you'll just repeat that pattern all the way around and finish the round as before. So see how nicely this is laying flat, so that curl does start to flatten out as the rounds increase. So now you'll have 48 stitches for this round, and now we're going to start making this into a square. So now I'm going on to the Patons Decor. This is acrylic wool blend, and the color is Pale Oceanside. And it's also a number 4 medium weight yarn. As I say, I'm mixing up some different brands with these patterns because I was looking for certain colors, and so I am just going to wash it always in cold water. So we're going to join on in the same way, creating a slip knot and going into any stitch and going into the top loop only. You'll join on with a single crochet. And flip your tail over and do a single crochet, and then you'll do a single crochet into the top loops of the next 3 stitches, and 3. So you'll have 4 single crochets there now, and now we're going to start making the square shape. So you'll do a half double crochet into the top loop of the next stitch, and then a double crochet into the top loop of the next stitch. And now we're going to work the corner. So you'll do a double crochet into the top loop of the next stitch, and then chain 2, and do another double crochet back into that same stitch, and that will be your corner. And you'll work every corner in the same way. And then coming out of the corner, you're going to do a double crochet into the next stitch, and then a half double crochet into the next stitch. And I'm actually doing a double crochet here because I'm talking and crocheting. That should be a half double crochet. and then you'll do a single crochet, and you'll do 7 single crochets all together. So I'll speed this up. So there'll be 7 single crochets along the flat side here, and then you'll start building up into your corner again. So after you've done 7 single crochets, you'll do a half double crochet into the next stitch, and then a double crochet into the next stitch, and then work your corner with a double crochet into the next stitch, chain 2, and a double crochet back into that same stitch, and then come out of the corner with a double crochet into the next stitch, and a half double crochet into the next stitch, and this time I did it right. And then you'll do your 7 single crochets along the flat edge here and continue to repeat that pattern. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, so I'm coming out of my last corner, and I've just done my half double crochet, and if everything is worked out well, you should have 3 stitches left. So remember, we started with 4 single crochets on this side, so we're just finishing with 3 single crochets, which will equal our 7 across the flat edge. So just finish off these last 3 stitches, and then you have a total of 7 single crochets on this side. And we're going to finish this round just like we did with all the others, because we're working into the back loop of these stitches all the way around. And you'll find that you'll get really fast doing this. So again, skipping that first stitch, I'm going into the second loop here and lay this mock stitch on top of that first one, and going into the V stitch of that stitch where your yarn is coming out of. And you'll find you'll get really quick at finishing off this way. And so go ahead and darn in your tail ends. All right. So this is coming along nicely, and for the final round I'm using the Lion Brand Touch of Alpaca in the purple Aster 146, and this is the same color I'm using for the final round for all these squares, just to create that cohesive pattern in the afghan. So joining on in the same way as you do all the other rounds, join on with a single crochet into the top loop of any stitch. And I'm starting right before the corner here because I'm going to show you how to go into the corner. So join on with a single crochet, and then you'll do a single crochet into that top loop of every stitch all the way around. Now as you come into the corner, you want to make sure this is your double crochet, and this may look your chain 2, but that's the top of your double crochet there, and you want to make sure to catch that stitch before you go into the corner. So do a single crochet, and then you'll work your corner, and you'll do a single crochet into the chain 2 space, and then a half double crochet into that space, and then a single crochet. And you'll work each corner in the same way, and you come out of the corner and catching the top loop of the first double crochet coming out of that corner. And so go ahead and work your way around the square in the same way, with the single crochets all the way around in the top loops, and then you'll do a single crochet, a half double crochet, and a single crochet in each corner. Okay, so here I am coming to the end of this round, and just have 2 more stitches to go. Picking up that last stitch, and again you'll just finish this round with the invisible stitch as before. And see how nice that looks? So I'm going to darn in the tail ends, and then I'm going to give this a little steam. I have a nice little steamer, and I'm going to steam mine, but you can block it any way you like. All right, so here it is all done, and it's nicely steamed, and see how nice that looks even from the back. It looks lovely. And I really love that hand steamer. I'll put a link to that below because it works really well to block all your crochet work really. And you can see how nicely this square works with the other designs that I have for this series. And I am going to be making an afghan eventually. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more creative and inspiring videos. Thank you for joining me.